Welcome to Cloud Dialogues. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome to Cloud Dialogues, everybody. We are back post summer break. Well, I am back post summer break. Matt is back post winter break. Although you did have a summery vacation.
I did. I went to the Gold Coast. It was like 21
Was it
degrees.
hot? Oh,
Yep,
that's
that's
okay.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that is good.
It was
It's
only
like
4
when I was
days, but it was just enough.
yeah. I mean, I feel like people who were asking me the other week, is it hot in winter in Perth? Well, I was there in May and I was on the beach.
And it was
So
warm.
I guess so. I was on the beach. I was on the beach in a bikini, enjoying the heat. So I would say yes. I
You
don't really
even
know how much
dipped your
winter they
toes
actually
in,
have.
didn't you?
I did actually go for a swim.
Oh,
I
full
like
swim.
took my feet off the bottom of the So I thought I was quite. Once I did that, I was like, I'm done now. That's it. I've done it. We're all good.
Nice. Tick.
That was my accomplishment. So I thought something that we hadn't talked about for a while was operating model. And whenever I help executives to reflect on their cloud transformation. Usually, the reason that things don't go well is because the operating model changes haven't been implemented or haven't been implemented properly, or maybe haven't been implemented thoughtfully. So I thought our first episode back after the break, it would be a good opportunity to just kind of break down the different elements of cloud operating model and just talk through some of those kind of main pitfalls that a lot of organizations, struggle with. And I guess how we help, different executives and organizations to, you know, kind of mitigate those issues. I thought that would be a good start for the post-summer rest of 2024.
Yes. The cloud operating model covers a lot of sort of areas. I think we're probably going to focus on a bunch of different roles, I guess you call them, today.
Functions, maybe?
Functions, yeah, which might be
Capabilities?
maybe which cover different sort of areas of dealing with the cloud operating model. And every organization implements them slightly differently as well. There might be small teams covering a whole bunch of items, but a lot of the time for governance reasons, some of them kind of need to be split out.
And have different specific needs, right? Therefore, all of this has to be tailored.
Yeah.
But I think these are the sort of key functionalities that are needed to be successful with cloud, and we'll kind of talk about why. It's also important to recognize that like cloud operating model is not just an IT thing. When you move things to cloud, obviously, like in terms of like we say, okay, we're going to move from a more waterfall style approach to IT. We have IT operations. We manage tickets. You know, we receive tickets with problems and issues, and we fix them. And we want to close as many tickets as possible. Obviously, DevOps is a fundamentally different style of working, and ideally that goes hand in hand with like a product-focused operating model.
Yeah.
So then it becomes like, okay, my development, my operations are sitting within the same team, so we deal with customers, but we also are responsible for driving and implementing the vision of what this product is supposed to look like, right? Whatever that might be. And then that could be platform engineering as well, right? It could be platform because platform is a product and you need to make sure that it's a good quality product that's well received by your users and it's tailored for the users that you have. But it's really important that obviously there's that shift in mindset initially, but also to recognize that cloud operating model is not just about your product teams. It's about your whole organization, and about your whole organization needs to change in order to make the most out of cloud.
And that's one of the anti-patterns, bringing your existing operating ways of working to the cloud. They don't always fit very well. I know you've had interesting experiences in that area. You're probably set up to fail because existing processes have been set up in an existing way because of your siloed teams and communication
Yeah.
issues each team had. That's what. And then with cloud it's a lot more freeform. Your governance is slightly different and you have a lot more flexibility and you have more granular controls that you can do. So you don't actually need as much control over teams, I guess.
Yeah.
In the
Change
cloud way.
management is obviously like an important, and this is a great example, right? Okay, we'll say we're moving to a product-centered operating model on cloud. Therefore, our product owners are responsible for leading the DevOps teams and really owning. They are responsible and accountable for their estate sitting on top of the platform, right? So this is an important thing, because what you'll have often is you'll have people that are responsible for like managing change, and effectively their roles will become more about like enabling change as
Yeah.
opposed to managing change, right? It's like, okay, well, we're not going to have this. We only kind of run sort of a cab style thing for high risk changes. Therefore, everything else we would expect that it just happens kind of almost autonomously, and the product owners own that capability, right? So they're responsible for manage that pipeline of changes and integration. And I think that's something that has to be managed really carefully, as to like help those people to understand that their role is going to be more about supporting and enabling and providing those structures and that expertise to manage change, as opposed to saying, yes, you can go forward with this change, or no, you can't, on that granular level, because that just is not going to work.
No. And because those teams can't scale either. So you need to distribute that decision making out to the teams a little bit more. And change management teams have always been about risk, but it's really, really about the risks change, I guess, with cloud, because you have different sets of controls, smaller blast radiuses. So the whole risk
Yes.
dynamic process has changed. So there's change
And
management teams just need to focus on the real areas that are problem with potential to be problem for the customer.
and helping the teams have the right structures, right? Like, it's important that those people know that their roles are really critical for helping to create the right structures and put the right risk tolerances in place, because they have that knowledge, right? So their role is like almost even more essential, as opposed to like, oh no, we don't need you anymore. This is not like, we may not have as traditional like cab style meetings, but their roles are, especially in that implementation phase, more important than ever.
Yeah. Do we want to quickly
Shall we talk
cover?
about platform?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, platform.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. I feel like platform, platform delivery is an area where I really seldom see organizations getting it right. And I think this is one of the core drivers for cloud not being adopted well within organizations, is because the platform of the product, it hasn't been tailored adequately to meet the needs of the DevOps teams. Therefore, because they can't reasonably use it, or they have to modify outside of the guardrails, the organization, you end up in a situation where it's not adopted as much as it could and utilized as much as it could have been. Therefore, you don't see the benefits of all the innovation.
Yeah. Historically, people, before organizations went to cloud, they had their own, a lot of shadow IT, shadow cloud environments.
Oh, seriously. So many.
And you still have that risk today if your platform team can't build you an environment that's usable. And that's why, like, we've got platform engineering as one of the topics, but the other one that's, I think, really closely related to that is your cloud center of excellence. And I know that's a term bandied around a lot, and I think a lot of people don't quite understand what that means. But the distinction I like to put is that platform engineering is about making sure you've got a solid platform with all the guardrails automatically built in for people to build on. But platform is about making sure that environment runs,
Fit for
logged,
purpose.
fit for purpose, all that sort of stuff, and covers all the, the security and other cloud governance controls.
Yeah.
Center of
Deploys
Excellence
the
is
right
about how
guardrails
people.
down.
Yep. Center of Excellence is about how people can use that platform efficiently, and also, so it's like a reaching out to the end users who are using it, which are usually developers, not all the time, but sometimes it might be infrastructure teams as well. But understanding their needs, showing them how it can be built, building some templates to make them efficient, like samples for the outcomes that they want to get, but also reaching back into the platform team to make sure that the platform is fit for purpose for those use cases. If it's not, to facilitate changes to make it's like that glue between the end product teams, if you will, and the platform team. That's the distinction I like to put. And you don't actually need a huge team. If you're just starting in cloud, you just need 1 or 2 people, like a small number of people to reach out. It might increase in size for a period of time, and then maybe it'll drop back in size. So it could be flexible.
I mean, it's the COE's job to really understand the needs of the developer, right? And to almost be like a bit of developer advocate.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the platform team, it's their job to like deliver on that experience. I think a lot of the time, actually, one of my colleagues wrote a article on this a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's going to get published soon, and I'll share it when it does, because I think it's super insightful. And one of the things that he was saying was that often what happens when organizations move to cloud is that IT operations becomes platform engineering, or like IT operations kind of morphs into platform engineering. And I think the challenge with that is that traditional IT operations are not customer obsessed.
Yeah.
They generally are gold on closing tickets, right? So the problem with that is that if you have a team that has a culture that where they don't really care about the end customer, you're not going to be crafting a great developer experience that actually enables the adoption of cloud within your
That's right.
organization,
And you'll
right?
find people will go
Um,
elsewhere.
oh, and they will, and there'll be, like you say, there'll be tons of shadow environments. I think every organization that I've worked in, including Amazon, there was like people on chat, like it's unbelievable. I think it is really something that's really hard to get right, but I think that's why it needs to be someone's job to get the product right, to get platform right as a product. And that starts with a deep understanding of your customers. Again, this is the same kind of concepts that when I talk to executives about what are you actually trying to deliver to your external customers? Like, who is your customer? What are you trying to deliver to them? And thinking really deeply about that. And it's the same concept that apply with platform, right? It's like, this is a product that we need to deliver, and we need to think deeply about our customers and understand our customers deeply in order to deliver a great product and a great experience.
And their
And the same
customers,
concepts
yeah.
apply.
And the
100%.
and the platform engineering customers are not just the people who use the platform, but it's also your executives who you might be listening to this show today, and you have your goals, you have your KPIs. Is your platform engineering team actually building something that can help you achieve those?
Yeah.
Which could be getting out of a data center, or it could be building this new greenfield cloud native application. You might just have one product team building this application, which is critical to your KPIs for whatever reason. So you got to have the full circle, make sure it's dealt with and taken care of properly.
And I think what you were saying there about like KPIs and goals, Matt, I think that's really important as well to consider throughout this, these sort of changes and going back to like change management, like, whoever's the change coordinator, like instead of their goal being like changes approved, it needs to be like changes enabled, right? Like how much successful change did we enable that didn't require us to hit approved? Like how did we enable, how have the product managers become capable in managing their own pipeline of changes and releases? I think that, this sort of stuff needs to be really thought about because it does affect people. Like people's goals will ultimately drive them. Whatever's measured gets managed, right? So you need to consider what's being measured when you go about these sort of changes.
The Cloud Center of Excellence can help with that change management side of things as well, because they can see the common threads that are, maybe causing slowdowns for the actual end customers. And then you can sometimes get, efficiency of, what's the word? When you have many different changes.
Like releases?
Yeah. When you have many different releases with similar problems or whatever, you can sometimes enable a particular change on the platform. So you can liaise back with the platform team to make that change more efficient. And there might be a platform change that's required to, enable a certain feature or whatever. So it can just be done once. So then all the teams get the ability to move quicker by not having to worry about that particular thing anymore. It could be a governance security control. It could be whatever it is. If someone's asking things multiple times, then there should be a way to make that done once. So then, everyone can move on. and be more efficient.
I think one of the other things to remember about why product operating model is important for cloud is from a FinOps perspective. Because
Yes.
if you've got really clear accountabilities in terms of what your cost versus value is, the only person that's going to be able to explain cost versus value for what you're spending for each of your products on cloud is going to be the product owner,
Yep.
right? So the product owner needs to be responsible and accountable for that. Obviously, cloud is just like a pay-as-you-go type service, right? So ensuring that you can hold someone accountable for the usage and actually understand what business value it's driving. Because, you could be spending a lot substantially more over time, but it might actually be worthwhile, right? You might be driving the value from it. It's like, well, actually, we're delivering X ROI on this product, even though we are spending substantially more. So having that level of oversight is really critical as well. Otherwise, you're just going to find that, and again, like with the shadow type environments, you'll find that there's all these costs cropping up and you're not really aware of what they're for or about because they're not kind of part of your core governance process, right?
Yeah, they're not going to be reporting on. It's just money's disappearing and no one knows why.
Yeah. I think this is where a lot of organizations end up over time and quickly. Like I've seen organizations get themselves into a couple of $100,000 worth of platform spend within the space of a couple of years, and they hadn't migrated anything.
Yeah.
Like this is why having that level of accountability is really important.
Yeah, the product is so important. I've seen even today there's still so many projects funded and the project teams disband. They don't necessarily care about the cost because they're not accountable for it. And then when it goes into operations, sometimes it still goes into a shared operations team, but sometimes it goes into a product team. They're the ones carrying the can, and then they need to figure out what's going on and bring the cost back. So it's better to get it right from day one. These things that you build on cloud aren't projects. They are products because they have a life. They have a life for the entire building cycle from when you start to when you end. So it's on the product team to ensure that whatever's being built is efficient and it's continually improving. Part of the agile methodology or just best practice these days on cloud to do continuous improvement.
Matt, one thing I wanted to ask you about was what's your perspective on like if you're an organization that has a big or needs to have a big data capability, if you're managing like data warehouses, etc., how does that fit in with your platform team and your product operating model? Like what do you think what have you seen in terms of like the best way to manage this in an organization?
That's a kind of a tricky one because data is usually spread across different parts of the organization, and every business unit or every product or many different parts have their own views of the data that they're interested in. So you can have a federated model where people look after their own data, similar to APIs. One of the good ways to do it is to have those who own the data that their team's responsible for to publish the data catalog for their particular part of the world. And if all parts of the organization do, you could have a central data team kind of collates all that information into some sort of shared data catalog. So that way each team controls the data that's available. You have full data governance across each team's responsible for their own data, and you have a central data catalog that people consume. There might be analytics people needing to collate data across different products and things like that.
Especially at a strategic level, right?
that's
like
right,
to
yeah.
support executives and the board to make the right decisions for the organization. And that generally sits within like a CDO kind of function.
Yeah. And having that where organizations get a bit lost is if they try to centralize all that data from all the different areas into a central data lake.
It just becomes impossible to
you can't
find a
manage
like
it.
one size fits all
That's right.
kind
It
of
becomes a
approach,
mess.
right?
You have no lineage of the data where it came from. You can't replicate things. So in my opinion, it needs to be small. We probably should get a data expert on at some point. That's a good idea. To talk about this.
I really want to do that.
There,
And I think this is something that, because a lot of organizations, and again, like I know we spoke to Patrick a few weeks ago now, which was amazing. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to that episode with Patrick. And we spoke about, how do you take AI to your platform team? And I think for a lot of the part, like that depends on, as an organization, like what do you want to be known for, right? Like do you want to be known for like developing new AI products or what have you, right? But if you're an organization that's like, servicing the public sector or whatever, then it's like, okay, well, we possibly are already being provided enough like AI capability in the SaaS solutions that we have, in terms of like Copilot and GitHub and all the sort of AI functionality. It's already been driven into like development and efficiency type products like Copilot, for example. It's like, well, do we really need to like stand up our own AI capability? I would say very possibly not, depending on what you're trying to do as an organization. A lot of that capability is already going to be driven into the products that you're probably already using.
yeah, yeah. Use the platforms. Are available. And that's the thing. A lot of the organisations actually don't have their data in order, so they don't know. They can't, to be able to use these AI platforms properly. You've got to know your data, where it is, and have some sort of maturity around data pipelines and being able to build, repeatable processes around data preparation and cleaning and transform before you can even.
What did that article say about this a few weeks ago? Fix your shit.
Fix your shit. Yeah,
Fix your shit.
it's a very common issue, and
But I think that's where most organizations get to that are not your like Amazons and your Googles. That's like, okay, well, we want to do these things with data, but we actually don't have a way of managing our data that makes sense. It's like, oh, I want to know how I can do all this fancy stuff with my data. And I'm like, well, the first thing you need to do is fix your shit, right?
That's right.
So the first thing you need to do is find a way to like, centralize at least some or most of your data. All of it is never going to be possible, right? But
Yeah.
I think there's definitely like and then it's also the data, the people that own like data at an organization level. It's their job to know where all the things are, right? It's like we may not have them in a central repository, but we know who owns it and we know how to get access to it and whatnot for the purposes of, making the right strategic decision for our organization.
And that having that centralized, it should be like a thin layer data team, I think, to coordinate all different areas. And
yes,
and I'd say that's the same for people who use Kubernetes. You need a platform team for that as well, because that's a platform on a platform. So
agree.
That is a really complex area that a lot of organizations actually don't need. They think they need, but they don't usually. But if you do need it, you need to have a platform for it.
Gosh, should we do an episode about containerization? Because I feel like this is a whole other thing.
Maybe. Yeah.
Containerization is like a whole struggle.
So we probably should.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about containerization. I feel like that's something that a lot of executives ask me about. Should we containerize?
And ultimately it comes down to the needs of the application. So without getting too off track, you start high level serverless platform and then move down to, containers if you need to go down. And then managed containers are better than, running your own Kubernetes platform, because that requires a whole team to look after. Sadly, I've seen teams very under-resourced trying to manage a container platform, and everything's, out of date.
And then you end up with security issues, right? And then you're like, well, this is because you're right. It is potentially a really significant undertaking, right? And it requires a certain skill set. Like, I actually can't say that I know a significant volume of people that really know about Kubernetes, for example. I would only say that I know a couple of people, and obviously like we're in the space, right? I only know a couple of people that are like super on top of Kubernetes and they know how to manage it in terms of like software engineering. And not a lot of people have this capability.
Yeah. And that's, maybe we'll touch on security operations as well, because the more platform teams you have, the more technologies you have, the more complex your environment, and therefore the more skills you need. Not only those teams, but in your security operations team as well. And your governance teams. So they need to understand the technologies you're deploying. So if you're deploying all those different technologies, you need to have people who know those technologies to be able to understand the risks and how to mitigate them properly. So security operations is a critical team. A lot of the time, again, it's under-resourced and underfunded. But maybe that's changing now with security vulnerabilities and exposures and data leaks and everything.
I don't know. Hey,
I'm not
I
sure.
feel like you don't really understand it until it happens to you.
Yeah, and then it gets funded.
All of
Or
a
you,
sudden, funding.
or you don't have a CISO, and then all of a sudden you do have a CISO, and then they go, "What the hell's this?" And then they advocate for funding to be able to build the teams. Which I've had a client that I was dealing with recently who definitely had security underfunded, but then they had a security executive join, and he's changing all that.
Positive
Super
change.
important. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things that someone asked me the other week, and I really liked this question, they were like, how do you do op model transformation successfully? And I was like, well, ideally, you don't really have transformation, right?
That's
Ideally, you
right.
don't really have
It should
transformation
be slow.
programs. Exactly. Ideally, what you have is a small series of changes over an extended period of time, right? Or you kind of reflect on your organization. You go, oh, actually, like these people are sort of already reporting into this person, and that makes sense for the future. So why don't we just actually execute those changes at our HR? Like let's
Yep.
actually make those changes in our systems. And that's ideally the place where we get to. But I think, it's important to be thinking about if we consider what we want our technology landscape to look like in 3 years, what does that require from us in terms of operating model? And then thinking about how do we make a series of smaller changes moving towards that vision? How do we slightly change the way that we're working? How do we help people to slightly change their mindset to move towards that new way of working? I think ideally the way to do transformation programs is that you don't have transformation programs, right? You have a small series of changes that progressively occur over time to the point where people sort of don't even notice them. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's make those changes.
And you're never
like,
done, right? You're never
no,
done. Because it's
absolutely not.
continuous.
Absolutely not.
Whereas
It's like, where do we want to
transformation programs
be?
are done because they've run out of money, right? And then
Yeah.
everyone moves on, and then it's like there's a mess left behind. A lot of the time, not all the time, but a
Yeah,
lot of the time.
this is true.
We're done. Tick. It's on my CV. I'll put on LinkedIn. I'll go into my next job. Sorry for the little diss on LinkedIn there. Lovely.
I think people must think that I do love LinkedIn.
Yeah, I know you do.
Every time I log in, I'm like, like, when you see, have you seen that clip of, what's his name in The Simpsons? Oh my goodness. What's his name?
The guy with the
Sideshow
hair,
Bob.
Sideshow
When he's
Bob,
like stepping on the rakes and he's just like,
that's the
that's what logging into LinkedIn in the morning is like. And just like stepping on a series of rakes and just being like,
Send us feedback, listeners, if you agree with Georgia or you love LinkedIn.
I know everyone actually agrees with me.
I'm thrilled to
everybody
announce
hates
that I love
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. No, I'm joking.
Hey, I think we've covered a lot.
Yes.
So we covered, what did we talk about? We spoke about platform. We spoke quite a bit. We spoke about product. We spoke about change. We spoke about security. We talked about COE. I feel like we're on a roll this morning. We spoke a bit about governance, and we didn't speak about SRE. That's one thing. Should we quickly speak about SRE? This is something I'm not an expert on.
Let's cover that.
You probably know a lot more about this.
Well, a little bit. Let's cover that in a separate show. That's a good idea. We have 2 ideas.
Should we talk about SRE? Should we do a show specifically about SRE?
I think so.
Because I feel like that's something that's very misunderstood or just generally not understood at all.
SRE and DevOps kind of blend. But I think we should do that. We covered data as well, so we've covered almost everything we had on our list. And we've
Love it. Amazing.
We've gone for long enough today, so that's probably
good stuff. Good stuff.
We can't go.
We hope you've enjoyed.
4 people.
And I have a meeting to go to.
Oh, do you?
No, we hope that gave you some sort of insight. Hopefully, obviously we love your feedback. Please, drop us a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yep. Definitely like and subscribe and watch our show.
Hit us
Even
up
if
on
you're not
LinkedIn.
watching the show, just press play so we get the get the view numbers.
We need the traffic, man.
Get the view
numbers. So
numbers.
hard. Oh my goodness. It's like everything we do, I'm like, even sometimes I feel like I feel like I feel like we really follow the leadership principles. Like sometimes I think that, this stuff is not going to be popular, but I feel like it needs to be spoken about. So we're going to talk about it, but I'm disagreeing and committing because I know that it's probably not going to be good for our numbers, but it's stuff that people need to hear about.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Georgia. Have a good day. Hope you feel better soon.
Thanks, everybody.
No worries. See ya. See you all.
Bye.
Bye.